Back in the early 90s, two titans owned the streets of the video game industry. The crazy popular hardware and software powerhouse Nintendo and their cool, new, and edgy rival Sega. The rivalry between the two was legendary and gave us some fantastic titles and kicked off the concept of console wars. However, as the years went on, Sega took some more risky ventures with the Sega CD and 32X, but everything changed once the 5th console generation rolled around, and not for the better. After the failure of the Sega Saturn, Sega put up one last-ditch effort to stay in the console race, and in 1998, Sega released the Dreamcast. Unfortunately for Sega, soon after the Dreamcast International launch in '99, Sony released the PlayStation 2 in 2000, which utterly decimated the Dreamcast sales and led to its discontinuation in 2001. Though it sold poorly, the Dreamcast was the most powerful console at the time of its release, and its library of games was incredible and full of cult classics like the Sonic Adventure series, Skies of Arcadia, Crazy Taxi, Shenmue, Soul Calibur, Power Stone, and the list goes on. But out of all the games in the Dreamcast library, there's only one that defines the console for me and has been one of my favorite games for much of my life, and that game is Jet Set Radio. Hey guys, it's Monado83, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite games, so we're taking a look at Jet Set Radio. For those of you who don't know, Jet Set Radio was released on October 31st, 2000 for the Sega Dreamcast, and was later ported to a bunch of other consoles and PC, which is the version I am reviewing. The game was developed by Smilebit, which was an in-house developer for Sega until 2004 when it was merged back into their main R&D team. And though it's hard to say, I think Jet Set Radio was their most popular title. But with that out of the way, let's get into the review. Oh crap, I gotta finish the tutorial too. So what exactly is Jet Set Radio? Well, it's a game about skating around, tagging up the town, and getting down with the funky sounds. But for real, Jet Set Radio is a super unique title, and there's not really anything quite like it. The story is narrated by the emphatic DJ Professor K over his hit pirate radio station, Jet Set Radio. Basically, you play as a gang called the GGs in the fictitious city of Tokyo-to, where the hit product are these slick magnetic inline skates. Some other gangs are trying to spread out into your turf, so you've got to get on the streets and protect your territory by slinging some paint. From there, things just get crazy, with a mysterious organization called the Rokaku Group, overseas shenanigans in the US, and a plot to take over the world and suppress free speech. It gets completely absurd and over the top, but it's a fun ride, and that's all I'm really going to say about that, because this game is all about the gameplay. Oh yeah! Whoa, what the heck is going on here? Why is this video all over the place? I told you I was done taking your crap. Oh, you're here. I thought that was a one-time bit. Well, it was, but then they made some script revisions, and they brought me back in, and then they gave me this sweet bonus on my contract, so I decided to come back. How are you getting paid? I don't have a production company. I do this all myself. Yeah, I may have embellished a little bit, but I bet you're wondering why this video is playing out this way. That's literally what I just said a few seconds ago. Hey, I'm doing the talking here! Anyway, in order to make you suffer like I did, I'm going to make you live out this game. And since you don't have skates anymore, you're going to make a fool of yourself for my entertainment! Oh, sweet! I love this game! And I literally make a fool of myself to make other people laugh all the time, so I don't really see the problem here. Oh, this isn't going to be all fun and games. Anyway, get on with the review! Well, that was weird. But anyway, Jet Set Radio is super fun and has quite a bit of content for you to experience. At its core, Jet Set Radio is about skating and spraying, and everything you can do in the game is entirely built around those core features. Although this doesn't exactly play like a sandbox platformer, that's kind of what it feels like, and that's the closest thing I can compare it to. There are a total 3 main levels and 2 smaller levels to explore here, and each level has different missions for you to complete in it. Those missions are further divided into mission types, of which there are 3. There's the standard tag all the highlighted spots in the level missions, race an opponent to a spot and tag it first missions and boss missions where you have to tag 3 opponents in the back 10 times. In terms of mission structure, there isn't a ton of variety, but the level designs more than make up for that. The 3 main locations in the game are each divided up into districts, and you'll do a mission in each before the whole map is open for you to explore, which helps you navigate your environments better, which I really liked. And speaking of navigating,
we all love games with good movement, from the web-slinging of Spider-Man PS4 to the parkour of Mario Odyssey. It's fun to play games that give you cool and engaging ways to explore the world. And although Jet Set Radio doesn't let you move as fast as Spider-Man or give you as many options as Mario, skating in this game feels incredibly fun and satisfying, and as a result, it makes each level a blast to play.
Alright, like we discussed, in any given mission you're going to be roller skating around and tagging things with graffiti, but what exactly does that look like? The skating mechanics in this game work great, and they actually recreate the feeling of skating really well. On paper, your maneuvering options are limited. You have a boost you can use to give you a bit more speed, but it does have a hidden cooldown, so you can't boost all the time. The only other thing you can do besides moving around and jumping is grind on certain surfaces, specifically rails. Rail grinding lets you move really fast, and jumping between rails is incredibly fun to do. Not only that, but you can grind on walls and jump between them if you're skilled enough. If you've got enough speed, jumping and grinding on rails will also automatically perform cool tricks, which adds some flair to your movement and give you a score bonus. The levels in this game were designed to give you tons of places you can grind on, and it makes seeking out all these graffiti spots a blast. While you're skating around, you're going to see a ton of spray cans you can pick up, which you'll need to start tagging. Once you find the spot, slam the trigger and get spraying. There are 3 different sizes of graffiti, and for medium and larger works, in addition to a button press, you'll also have to do a little quick time event-like sequence where you have to move the control stick in the on-screen directions to mimic the spray painting yourself. There's a good balance between paint can cost and availability, which encourages you to stock up on paint to move faster, but there's plenty of cans around if you run out, so you don't have to go out of your way to reload. Now you may ask, this is cool and all, but it doesn't sound like there's any challenge. Well, trust me, there is. For starters, every level has a time limit, which is plenty of challenge for the boss missions, and the challenge of the race is self-explanatory. But as for the tagging missions, well, the game does warn you at the beginning that tagging is a crime, so...
This is Cool Gamer Dude. I've got that punk cornered. Once you arrive, fill that kid with lead.
Oh no, I forgot about this part!
I got you now, you little punk!
Surely this can't be it. Nobody tries to shoot you for simply spraying paint, right? Yeah, that's exactly what happens, and it gets absolutely crazy. At the start of the game, you deal with police officers armed with bats that like to latch onto you and follow you around, and only the maniacal Captain Onishima is the one with the gun. But after evading Onishima for a few levels, he brings in paratroopers, attack helicopters with missiles, and tanks, all to stop you from spraying graffiti. And believe it or not, it gets worse from there, but I'll leave that for you to discover. Thankfully, none of these attacks do much damage on their own, but with the sheer amount of foes on the map at any given time, you have to be very careful where you tread. There are health cans to restore your HP, but they aren't nearly as plentiful, so it's best to stay away from these graffiti-hating nerds as much as you can.
I'm hood, man.
As for other content, there are quite a few unlockables in this game. First off, there are a bunch of different characters you can play as, each with their own unique stats that affect your health, scores for doing tricks, and spray painting respectively. I won't discuss the secret characters you can unlock, but every so often after beating a certain level, you will unlock a rival showdown where you have to race a new recruit or copy their tricks. Once you do that, they're yours to play as, and though their stats don't really affect gameplay too much, it's fun to play as all these different wacky characters. There are also these things called graffiti souls around each stage that unlock new graffiti to spray. In the garage, you can choose a large, small, and medium spray design to personalize your vandalism, and there's even a neat system that lets you make your own custom graffiti so you can bring your own style into the game. Once you beat the story, you'll also unlock free play stages for each area where you can race against a random CPU, see how many graffiti points you can score, and see how many tricks you can nail, which gives you some nice replayability. And there's even online leaderboards and achievements to check out if you're interested. All in all, there's a lot to keep you in this world, which is great because the atmosphere of this game is dope.
Glad I made it out of that gameplay segment alive. It does not feel too good to be the one getting shot at. Maybe in the future I'll think more carefully about how I can resolve my conflicts and only use force when it's absolutely necessary. Anyway, Jet Set Radio was notable for more than its gameplay on release. See, this was the first game to employ the now common lighting technique called cell shading, which renders shadows as flat colors. This gives the game its cartoony, vibrant, and colorful look. A lot of games from the early 2000s have not aged very well graphically, but I think Jet Set Radio's graphics still hold up today because of this technique.
I love the way this game looks, from the bizarre and unique character designs to the highly detailed cityscapes. The environments feel so alive because of the popping colors and tons of pedestrians walking everywhere. I especially love the touch of tons of in-game advertisements plastered all over the place that feature tons of cool references to games and pop culture as a whole. As for the graffiti you spray, all the pieces are really well put together, and zany though they may be, I appreciate all the time the developers put into creating so many unique and quality designs. Also, I gotta say, as a redhead myself, it's nice to see a ginger protagonist because you don't really see that too often. Cell shading technology is obviously much better nowadays, but for the first game to take a crack at it and fully embrace its capabilities, I think Jet Set Radio did a phenomenal job.
Alright, I know what you're thinking. Now's the time of the video where I talk about how great the soundtrack is, why I think everybody should listen to it. And more or less, you would be correct if you're thinking that. However, to match this game's out there visuals and gameplay, the soundtrack is equally as out there. And unfortunately, it is not for everybody. However, I still think it is fantastic and it works perfectly with this game.
Jet Set Radio's OST is a smattering of genres and helps bring this game's variety out even more. The original tracks for this game were composed by the legendary Hideki Naganuma, whose distinct style and fast-paced music fits perfectly with this game. His use of weird samples and sound effects is great here, makes his tracks really fun to listen to. Other tracks were licensed out from various groups, and while some are not really that great in my opinion, there are some really solid songs here, and it helps break up Hideki's work and keep everything fresh. If you've liked what you've heard in the video so far, then definitely go listen to the rest, but for everyone else, all I can say is I've never heard anything like this in my life, and if you want to step out of your musical comfort zone, here you go. Also, the music mixes into itself like an actual DJ is changing the tracks, and it's super cool.
Oh my gosh. All bones in my body have been broken. Oh my god. Sorry you had to see that. Anyway, just like my sick tricks, sometimes I don't always land everything, and neither does Jet Set Radio. It would be unfair to judge the game on some of its more technical limitations because it is a 20-year-old game even though it is an HD port. So there are problems that couldn't really be fixed, like the low draw distance, but other than that, the technical limitations of the game don't really impact the gameplay too much. However, there are a few problems I had with it that could have been fixed in my opinion, and those are the camera and the enemies.
For the most part, this game's camera works really well. It follows you to good distance and moves with you pretty seamlessly. Sometimes though, when you're in a tight spot, the camera can clip through things or get put in weird angles, which can also make certain jumps really difficult to land. The main issue though is the button that sprays graffiti also resets your camera position to wherever your character is facing, and in boss missions where you have to tag the enemy in the back, this can sometimes accidentally turn you around and waste time because now you have to turn back around and chase down the enemies again. Speaking of enemies, I mentioned earlier they were hard to deal with and you should avoid them, but sometimes you really can't. This is a big problem because getting hit stops you from spraying, and if you're trying to tag a large piece with a bunch of enemies around, it can kill you or waste a ton of time. You can spray certain enemies to neutralize them like Captain Onishima and even helicopters, but you cannot spray the basic grunts, and there are a ton of them. I only got one game over because of this, but it is very annoying to deal with a lot of the time, and I wish you could tag the basic enemies too, or at least have the ability to consistently lure them away from a spot long enough to spray it. Lastly, and not a huge deal, sometimes the spraying controls don't always register correctly, but that's only a major problem when you're trying to not get shot. Otherwise, this game is solid.
So by now you know this game is pretty cool, and you're probably wondering what happened to the franchise. Well, in 2002, Sega released a sequel called Jet Set Radio Future for the Xbox, which was kind of like a reimagining of the first game with a little bit more of everything. But since then, the franchise has been completely dead, except for some cameos in other Sega titles. Unfortunately, due to licensing issues, Jet Set Radio Future was also never re-released. With all the outcry for Sega to make a sequel, Midgar Studios took matters into their own hands and released Hover, their Jet Set Radio-inspired game with a track from Hideki Naganuma. I got this game for free on Twitch Prime, played it for 5 minutes, and really didn't feel the magic that Jet Set Radio made me feel. However, on July 22nd, something really cool happened. Team Reptile, the studio behind the Lethal League series, which are these super dope baseball fighting games, released a trailer for their Jet Set Radio-inspired game, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. This game gave me super big Jet Set Radio vibes, and I am so excited for it to come out. With Hideki Naganuma behind the helm of the soundtrack, I know this game is going to be awesome.
It's such a shame that Sega pretty much abandoned Jet Set Radio. This game has touched the hearts and minds of so many people, and it really is one of their best franchises. Aside from all the content and visual and audio appeal, at the end of the day, it's fun to simply skate around Tokyo Toe, and to me, that makes this game really special. Jet Set Radio is a classic, and I highly recommend it. This franchise may have lived and pretty much died on the Dreamcast, but I'm glad it got to see the light of day in the first place.
Alright, dude, am I done here? Yeah, whatever. I'll just figure out some other way to defeat you. Or we could work together next time. I think it'd be more entertaining if we combined our forces rather than worked against each other. You think I'm gonna work with a scrub like you? Peace! Well, I tried. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. If you have any ways I can improve my videos, please leave a comment down below. Anyway, that's all from me, and see you all in the next one.